What's up, y'all? Welcome to another edition of Too Busy, Too Busy, Too Busy Tuesday. Hey, too busy, too busy, too busy Tuesday. Hey, welcome back to all of y'all that are returning. Welcome back. So glad to have you joining us tonight. If this is your first time tuning in to Too Busy, welcome. So glad to have you. My name is Raffinée, for those of you that may not know me, and Too Busy is my series where I get to share things that I don't have time or energy for anymore. So when it comes to certain kinds of things, my response when I don't have energy for them or I don't have time for them is too busy. Now, one of the beautiful things that I like to share each week is that just because I'm too busy or just because my guest is too busy does not mean you also have to be too busy. So, we're using this as an opportunity to share some things that we've learned along the way, and you get to choose. You get to decide and say, you know what? Yep, Raffinée, I'm also too busy for that. Or you may be like, you know what? I have a little bit of time or energy for that. That's cool. You get to decide. Now, I am super, super excited. I told y'all last week I had guests this week and next week as we kind of wrap up for this season. And I'm so excited to have Freda Thomas here with us tonight. Y'all shout her out in the comments, give us some air horns and some shouting emojis and all the things. Welcome, Freda. I'm so glad to have you here with me tonight.
Yes, I'm excited to be here with you as well. When
Yes.
I got the invitation, I was like, okay, what am I going to talk about? And then all of a sudden, I was like, most definitely, it's the holidays. And I've already been
Mm-hmm.
receiving some unhelpful grief comments that I am too busy for. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, that's the angle that I will most definitely go with. So
Yes.
excited to be
Now,
here.
one of the things I want the people to know before we jump into this, so Freda is a licensed clinical social worker supervisor. So that's what all those letters mean behind her name. Because I know sometimes people be like, y'all have too many letters and I don't know what all the letters mean. Okay, that's what the letters mean. It means she supervises students that are getting their hours, and she's a licensed clinical social worker. So she does therapeutic work, and Freda's specialty is actually grief. So this is so fitting. And Freda also told me, I had no idea about this, that the week that we're doing Too Busy is during National Grief Awareness Week, which runs from December 2nd through the 8th. So this is, I think, I agree with you. Perfect timing, getting ready for the holidays, and people are having to interact with people. And the holidays are not always an exciting time for folks. And so I'm glad that we're having this discussion tonight. So, before we jump into the discussion, can you share with the people, just tell them a little bit about you, who you are, say hey to them.
Hello, everyone. I'm Freda Thomas, and I am a grief recovery specialist. And I guess I became certified in 2006. So I've been in the grief game
Okay.
for some time. And I'm
Yeah.
also a woman that has experienced a tremendous amount of grief. In my 43 years, I have experienced a lot. So not only can I come to you from a professional standpoint, most definitely a personal standpoint as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Raffinée and I met about a year or so ago. We were both in a speaker coaching class, and it was
Yeah.
just we really bonded, and it was a great opportunity to meet so many great women that
I
are
agree.
really just ready to share their story. And my thing was, here I am. I've been working in this therapeutic capacity for 18 years, and I'm used to being behind the scenes. So this speaker stuff is totally new for me and really pushing me out of my comfort zone. But it's
Yeah.
one of those things when God says you need to move, I have to move. And so this is new for me, and I'm just gonna go and just get out here in these speaker streets and be my authentic self,
Yes.
and speak to the masses. So I'm glad to
I
be
love
here.
it. Yes, I love it. So, let's start out with a baseline because I want to ensure that everyone that's watching and listening this knows what we're talking about when we say grief. So, let's
Okay.
start with let's just give what is a definition for grief? What are we talking about tonight as we're talking about grief? Because I think so many people think death when they hear grief.
Yeah. So grief is a normal and natural reaction to loss. And another definition, working definition that I often use too, it is sometimes conflicting behaviors of
Mm,
basically of unfamiliar patterns or
okay.
change, any type of change.
Yeah.
And so like you said, Ralph, a lot of times we think about, the death of a loved one when we think about grief. But there's over 40 different life events that can contribute to grief. And some of them are tangible and some are intangible. Now,
Okay.
most people know about the tangible ones, like end of a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
divorce,
Yep.
the major holiday changes, financial changes,
Okay.
um, legal problems. Those are some of the things. All those things can, contribute to grief. And I even talk about like marriage and people preparing for weddings. Even though it's
Mm.
a happy occasion, sometimes it's a change in a familiar pattern.
Very true.
You have to
Yeah.
think about somebody other than just yourself. So those are some of the tangible losses.
Okay.
Now, we say intangible losses. These are some of the things like loss of normalcy. And I think everyone can identify with this one because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Loss of faith, loss of
Mm.
respect, loss of safety. So those are some of the things that are considered intangible losses.
Got it.
That's kind of how I like to set the framework up so people do know, hey, I may be experiencing some grief. I lost
Yeah.
my job. I'm
Mm-hmm.
grieving.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
I
kind
love
of
what you said. You said normal and natural, right? Normal
mm-hmm,
and natural.
mm-hmm.
I like
Yeah.
that.
And that's kind of one of the things I always leave my clients with. I say, if you don't remember anything else I've said during this session, know that whatever you're feeling is normal and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because you know why I think that's so important, Freda? And we're not gonna stay on this too long because I can talk about emotions for 8 hours.
natural.
Um, but what I love about that is it helps to almost bring this. I don't want to use normalcy, but it kind of levels the playing field to say that like this experience that you're having is almost to be expected at some level. Like that there doesn't have to be this judgment or dismissiveness associated with experiencing grief, that it is actually a normal and a natural response to loss, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
what you said.
Exactly.
Normal and natural
Normal
response
and
to loss.
natural. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna start using that and be like, in the words of Freda Thomas, grief
Most,
is normal and natural. I love it.
most definitely. And
Ne-
the other thing too, those conflicting feelings.
mm-hmm.
That's a real big deal. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad that I'm out of that relationship,
Mm,
but I really do miss
yes.
companionship.
Yeah.
So the conflicting feelings and stuff. So it's, I mean, it's grief is something else. Like I
Mm-hmm.
made in my post last night, grief is something.
Yeah. And it's sometimes hard to grapple with that both and that conflicting
Mhm,
emotions because to the point you're making, if you're not in a relationship anymore and you're grateful and yet sad, like it seems like I should not be feeling one of those,
mhm,
whatever, side you land on.
mhm,
Um, and I think it's indication though of the level of the relationship oftentimes, like the fact that you're missing something, it makes sense because it's not there anymore. What you have known to be the norm or regular for you for so long is now gone in what
mhm,
kind of whatever form.
mhm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so good. Okay, so I really want us to lean in on these unhelpful comments. So you and I, when we had our chat, we talked about some of the unhelpful comments that come up related to grief. So t- tell me, like, what are some of the comments that you've heard that, people sometimes make that maybe are well intended? Maybe they're not,
Mhm,
trying to be malicious, yet they can be unhelpful and potentially hurtful sometimes to people
mhm.
in relation to grief.
Excuse me, most definitely.
Yeah.
I think this one is probably the most famous one. Time heals all wounds.
I hate it.
Oh yeah. I'm like, what?
It doesn't.
It does not at all. It does not at all. That's probably one of the most famous ones.
Hmm.
There are plenty of fish in the sea. That was one of the ones I was told when my wedding was called off. There's plenty of fish in the
Mm.
sea, Greta. It's all right. You'll be all right. You got plenty of time to get married. Hurtful.
So insensitive. Yeah.
Yeah. People, you don't know the investment. You don't know the investment.
Yeah.
So one of those very hurtful and unhelpful comments.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
let's see. He or she wouldn't want you to be sad.
Like in the case of a death.
In the case of a death, yeah. I
Yeah.
hear that a lot. He or she wouldn't want you to be
Mm-hmm.
sad. Oh, God wouldn't put more on you than you could bear. Oh, okay.
I hear that one a lot.
And then this one is probably one of the most hurtful ones I've heard in a long time. A lady in the session told me that she was told, get yourself together. Be grateful you still have two other children.
Wait.
Get yourself together.
Whoa.
Be grateful you still have two other children.
That felt so abrasive to me, and I wasn't even on the receiving end of it.
Yeah.
Man.
So people
Somebody
are.
said in the comments, they were asked if their father was saved after they died. And they said, after death, why does it matter if one was saved? I could totally see that. Like, I don't want to have that discussion. Like, just,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So it can be rough. People can say some things that, you know, like you said, some of them are well intended, and sometimes people just don't think. People
Mm-hmm.
just don't think. And another thing
Yeah.
I've realized too is sometimes people, and we'll talk about this, I know, in a little bit more, but sometimes non grievers are uncomfortable with silence. So they just want to
Yes,
be
let's go
saying,
there now. That's fine.
they just want to say something. I have to fix this for my
Mm-hmm.
person, whoever your person is, your loved one, your griever. I have to
Yeah.
fix this for them. So sometimes the non-griever have, issues with sitting with their person in silence
Mm-hmm.
and just being that companion as they
Yeah.
as they sit in their pain.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
those are
I think some of that too is I'm attempting to minimize my discomfort though, as the non-griever, versus potentially trying to meet the person that is grieving where they are and being supportive in a way that is helpful for
the.
them.
Mm-hmm.
I think at least that's what I've seen. I think that contributes to some of that. Like, oh, I don't want to sit in silence because this makes me uncomfortable. And what if that's what they need though? Like, what if that's what's most helpful or most supportive for the grieving?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, one thing too, I always say to a non-griever is that it's okay, to be awkward because sometimes your friend just
Mm.
wants you to be there,
Yeah.
So, or it's okay to say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this grief thing, but I'm right here to listen and support you, and I love you. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable. I really don't even know what to say, but
Yeah.
I'm here. And it's okay to say that.
Yeah. I think that would be probably more powerful sometimes than those unhelpful statements to just be like, I don't know what to say. I'm here. And leave it at that. Because usually that's why also people are just continuing to talk and say stuff. Because they like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. To the point you made of they want to fix it sometimes. It's like you can't fix it. Like if I lost my job, you can't fix that. If I'm going through a breakup, you can't fix that. If
Mhm.
I've lost someone to death, you can't fix that. I can't fix that. If I could fix it, I probably would. You know what
Exactly.
I mean?
Hmm. So
Yeah.
yeah, but just sit with them. Sit with them in their pain. They just want
Now,
your companionship.
yeah, I agree. Now, you told me that you've been impacted personally in your own grief journey by some unhelpful comments. How have you seen that those comments that people have made along the way have impacted you, like personally, when it's come to dealing with grief?
So you really want to go here tonight, Raf?
Yes, why not?
Just ask.
You told me you were ready, so I was like, we're going to do it.
Is this where I put my disclaimer out there for the people? For
You
the people.
can. You can give.
Now, I'm just going to let you know now. Ralph has given me permission to be my authentic self.
That's absolutely right.
And so when I thought about this question, I was like, how am I going to actually answer this? Am I going to be the counselor, therapist, Freda, or if I'm going to be the Freda that really don't have time for this unhelpful stuff? Because I've experienced a lot of loss, but I'm still on my grief journey with the
Yeah.
loss of my dad. So, some things, every relationship, every loss is unique. So, I often say, I guess, when I've received unhelpful comments, my response, I try to be mindful of my response because that's how I was raised, to be
Okay.
mindful and try to be, respectful. However, depending on the loss they're referring to, the frame of mind that I was in when they, made the comment, will kind
Mm-hmm.
of oftentimes determines my reaction, will
Okay.
determine how I respond.
Yeah.
Now, some days I may be able to say, hey, I appreciate you being concerned, but that wasn't helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And then some days you might want to get away from it. You
Yeah.
just might want to move around. You might just want to get away from it. So
That's
it
real.
just kind of depends on the loss. Because, like I said, I've experienced a tremendous amount of loss. So,
Yeah.
especially the one with my dad is really, hurtful. It's really complicated, and when
Mm-hmm.
you start talking about suicide, it's a taboo subject and people say things and, so many things have, come up. So many I've been involved in so many different conversations and
Mm-hmm.
comments. So I try to handle it in a healthy manner, but I cannot sit here and say that I have
Yeah.
handled everything, all the comments with grace.
Mm-hmm. I love even the you might want to get away from me though. That's a boundary, and that's like, yo, not right now. It's a
Hmm.
you're maybe not able to articulate a whole lot of things, which I don't think is necessary though. I think
Hmm.
sometimes we want to say all the things, and it's like, yo, maybe what you feel comfortable saying is if you're watching or listening to this, maybe for you that's, yo, that was out of pocket, or not right now, whatever feels good and feels unique for you. It doesn't have to be what Freda said or even what I said, but just something
Exactly.
that feels good for you and resonates with you, to be able to communicate that, like, I'm not okay with what you just said.
Hmm.
And you don't have to expound on it. It could just be that, and that's the end.
Hmm.
Now, what might be, from your experience, professionally or even personally, let's say somebody is out there and they're like, I don't know what to say. Maybe they're that person that struggles with silence, or maybe they're like, I don't know what to say when my friend is grieving, when they've lost their job, when they have broken up with somebody, when they've lost someone to death. What might be some better things to say than time heals all wounds, because we know that it doesn't, it's just time passing.
Hmm.
What might be better to say than there are plenty of fish in the sea and you gonna find somebody else, or some of those things you mentioned earlier? How could we replace those with things that might be more helpful and more supportive?
One of the things that I encourage a lot of my clients and people that I speak to, and something that I do personally with some of my uh, friends that are currently grieving, I always
Okay.
say, hey, how can I support you today? And they love it. How can I
Mm,
support you today? And then someone may be like, what can you do for me today? Then they start getting, I'm like, no, wait a minute, let's not take it too far now, but how can how can I support you? Y'all know I don't do cooking, but I will go cook you something to eat. Don't
hey, I can
I
procure it.
don't cook, but hey, I
Right.
can go pick it up and bring it to you. And just some of those things like, how can I support you today? I don't, and once again, kind of one of those things, I don't feel comfortable, like I don't really know what to say, but I'm here. And
Hmm.
then sometimes you can get permission and say, hey, if it's okay, I would like to pick up the kids from school for you today. Or
Mm,
let me pick up groceries for you. Do you need me to pick up your prescription? It's just things that
mm,
sometimes, especially um, in early grief, if you just recently experienced this a loss of some type of, of some type, and you just kind of in survival mode.
Mhm.
Sometimes you really need somebody to kind of help you think of the, you know, things that you typical normal stuff, but you're
Mhm.
in a whole nother world that you hadn't even thought about the simple things. So
Yeah.
those are always some good things. Oh, one another thing, I have a few notes here. Another thing I
Okay.
wanted to make sure that the non-grievers know is it's okay to say the person's name.
Mm.
It's okay to say the person's name. Sometimes, people are tiptoe. I know people tiptoe around me sometimes, and I think people are starting to feel more comfortable as I share pictures and different things on Facebook and all that. And,
Yeah.
but for the longest, people would tiptoe around me and not really want to say Fred. And a lot of my classmates and people that I grew up with, they called me Fred. But it's like you know, I still call her by that nickname, or
Mm.
still Fred. You know what I mean? It's okay. And
Mhm.
it's okay to share memories. Girl, I remember when your daddy da 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 when we was in high school and he put us all out, blah blah. Whatever y'all want to talk about, that's cool. So it's okay to say the person's name
Mm. Mhm. That's
if they're a
good.
friend, loved one. It's okay and share memories. They
Yeah.
they really appreciate that. They really appreciate that.
Mhm.
So,
You,
mhm,
you know, I heard someone say once, and I don't remember where this was, but I remember someone saying like sometimes people don't say something to me about my loved one that I've lost, talking about death,
mhm,
because they think they're going to put it on my mind. And I love what you're saying here is like it's okay to say their name because oftentimes maybe they're not thinking about it every moment of every day, but I think we we being non-grievers sometimes, like if I'm not the one
mhm,
grieving,
mhm,
I make assumptions about what you want or what you don't want or what's comfortable for you or what's not comfortable for you
mhm.
versus the point you just made of ask or share a memory, you know. And you may even be able to ask, hey, I had this memory of Fred or of your dad. Would it be okay if I shared it with you? Because then that allows you the opportunity to say, Raffinée, I'm not in a space today to hear a memory, but maybe next week, or I'll come back to you. Or to be like, yes, I would love to hear that memory. You know what I mean? I don't have to try to sift through your thoughts and feelings to figure it out. I could just ask you.
Exactly.
I love that.
Mhm.
I think that's encouraging.
Mhm. And I know, and it's okay to say, "I'm sorry this is happening to you," or "I'm sorry that
Mm-hmm.
this happened," or you may just
Mm-hmm.
say, "This sucks."
That's what I say. I say this sucks often. For
Mhm.
real.
Or that's real messed up, or like I said, whatever day you catch me on, so it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
What makes that so okay to say I have my answer, but I want to hear what you have to say too. Like what makes
Yeah.
it okay to just be like, you know what, this sucks, or I'm so sorry that you're going through this or that this has happened.
Well, I think it's okay. So, are you talking about from the griever or from the non-griever
For the
perspective?
non-grieving. Like what makes that okay for them to say something like that? Like why do you think that's cool to do?
Because it actually makes the griever feel comfortable. And oftentimes it makes them feel comfortable being their authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
Yeah.
one of the things I was going to share. There is no truth but yours. You don't have to
Mm.
worry about anybody's opinion, judgment, how you experience that grief or that loss is your truth. And my mother and I were talking about that last night, how our experiences were totally different because that was her
Mm.
spouse, that was my
Yeah.
dad. So we love the same man, but the relationships are totally different.
Very true.
And
Yeah.
so, the things that make me sad may not make her sad. Or like for instance, I've had the same wallpaper of my dad on my phone since he passed. And
Mm.
so the other night I had my phone kind of propped up, you know, actually looking at some directions, I think. And she was sitting on the passenger side and she was like, how can you sit and look at his picture every day? And I said, Mama, it gives me so much joy to see him
Mm.
smiling, thinking about like our morning conversations. Because even at the age of all the way up until what, 37, 38, the man would still call me in the mornings like I didn't have an alarm and I didn't know that I needed to get up and go to work. So, I mean, I just enjoy looking at him every day.
Yeah,
When my mom saw that, she was like, I don't know how you do that. But different relationship, everybody's relationship is unique. Everybody grieves differently,
absolutely.
and it's normal and natural, however you want to do it.
Yeah, I like that. I think
Hmm.
it gives freedom to let your
Yes,
experience be yours.
very freeing, most
Yeah.
definitely.
Because there isn't, I mean, I love this point of different relationship. There is not a right or proper or stair step way to grief. We've got stages of grief and all that stuff out there, and I'm not knocking any of that. As much as to say, I do think it's so important that people feel the freedom for their process to be theirs and not to
Hmm.
feel the pressure to be somewhere. I will never forget, I lost my grandfather back in 2014. And my grandfather was super influential in my life. So I felt like he was the supreme father figure for me.
Hmm.
And every year on his birthday, I find myself thinking about him. He died 2 days before his birthday. So it's like there are lots of memories in a short amount of time because it's like the day he died, then 2 days later is his birthday, then like Father's Day is usually within like a week of that. And I remember one year talking to some of my family, and I was like, man, today's granddaddy's birthday. And one of my family members responded and was like, oh, I hadn't even thought about it. And I was like, literally, I was a little judgy. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little judgy. I was like, what? Um, and then I had to catch myself and I was like, Raffinée, like, it's okay. They don't have to think about it in the same way that you do. They don't have to still be experiencing it in the same way that you do. And I remember, I think it was one of my other family members had asked me, it was like, you still grieving? And I was like, yeah, like in a different way. Like, I'm not grieving in the same way that I was the day he died, like because I was there, to a year later to 3 years later. Like, it's different. The way that it impacts me now is very different. Yet, I think for me, it was one, a good check of like, yo, don't be judgy. And two, just to like, I literally saw even within my family the difference in the way that we were dealing and processing, and reminding
Hmm.
myself that, hey, Raffinate, that's okay. You don't get to judge them or be like, what do you mean? Like, it's just like, yeah, I am. Like, and that's
Hmm.
okay. And I feel okay about that.
Hmm. Yeah,
Hmm.
most definitely.
Okay, so as we're kind of wrapping up, this is really good. I'm enjoying this discussion.
Yes.
What encouragement would you give to the person that is out there, and maybe I'm gonna twist this a little bit because we kind of already talked about like if you're on the receiving end, how you could respond. So I
Hmm.
wonder, what encouragement would you give people kind of going into this holiday season? Because we talked about this is not always a happy time for people. And holidays can be difficult. So whether they're grieving or not grieving or supporting people that are grieving, like, what encouragement do you give people around this time of year?
Be mindful of what you say.
Mm,
My Thanksgiving post was be mindful. Everybody will not be in a hee kikiing mood.
yeah,
You know, everybody won't be on the same level.
so
I
true.
used to love the holidays, but they're totally different for me now. So
Mm,
let's just respect everyone's boundaries. No
mm-hmm,
pressure. Don't get to the table asking them when y'all having children.
mm,
Y'all, don't,
mm-hmm,
y'all ain't gotten pregnant yet.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
You still single. You don't have a man this year. You didn't bring anybody to Thanksgiving. I mean, just and if and if you don't have anything nice to say, just be quiet. Just be quiet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but just be mindful. No pressure. Just be mindful of who you're around. And just in the unhelpful comments. Hopefully, someone has learned something tonight. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
not good. It can be very hurtful, dismissive, rude. For the griever, if you find yourself and you get to the Christmas dinner table and you start feeling uncomfortable, it's okay to excuse yourself and leave. They want to
Mm-hmm.
drive your own car instead of riding with all your cousins over to Auntie Lydia's house.
Yeah.
You might just drive your own car. So if things get kind of, rough or a conversation comes up that makes you feel uncomfortable, you can leave,
Yeah.
and you can be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Be your
That's good.
authentic self, feel your feelings, just be in touch with your body and just say, I have this uneasy. If I have this uneasy feeling, know that it's okay to excuse yourself and leave
So
without
good.
any pressure or any guilt.
Yes.
Main thing,
I
just be
echo
mindful.
that.
Just be mindful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, the question I ask every guest that's here is, what is something that you used to be too busy for, or something that you were like, I don't have time or energy for, that you now have decided, you know what? I do have time or energy, or I am available for this thing now.
Well, and I know this topic is really trending now, but this is so real for me, and that's self care.
Mm,
I used to not ever have time for Freda or self care. And the major thing with me and self care is setting boundaries.
okay.
I've always had poor boundaries. I've always
Mm,
had a problem with saying no.
okay.
So this has been really freeing for me, you know, being able to actually just let self care not be my flex and
Come
just
on. Yes.
that's my thing now, and being okay with saying no and just going on about my business. Like I had an incident that happened with a family member. My mom said, "So you not gonna call them back?" And I thought, "No, ma'am, no." And that's what I meant. And no, I'm not calling them back to apologize because I wasn't rude or disrespectful. But I know it was different for them to hear the word no from me. But
Mm-hmm.
to all my friends and loved ones, that's one of the new things you'll be hearing.
Yeah.
So
Good for
self
you.
care, setting those boundaries.
Okay. So, where can people find you? How can they get connected with you if they are interested in knowing more about you, following you, they want to work with you? Where should they go?
Okay. Well, I'm on Facebook. It's Freda Thomas. My Instagram handle is Freda S Thomas. And also I have a website. It's www.beyondthepieces.com. So that's where you can
Okay.
find me.
And I put on the screen Freda S. Thomas. It'll also be in the show notes if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, or if you're listening to the podcast. And I'll also link the website Beyond the Pieces. Anything you have coming up that you want to share with the people?
Well, one thing I do have coming up in 2023, I'm going to be doing a series on grief and the African American experience. And I'm going to be collaborating with a um, actually sorority sister, which actually a line sister that reached out to me and with the university she works for. And so we'll be talking about grief and the Black life experience. So I'm really excited about doing it. I'll be doing that every weekend in the month of March. So I'm really looking forward
Nice.
to that.
That's exciting. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Freda, for your expertise, for your insight tonight. I appreciate it. This discussion has been helpful for me and hopefully helpful for y'all. And I hope that y'all will join me and listen to this back again if you need to, and get you some pointers for the holidays. Freda also made a point, and she said, listen to your body and kind of see how you're feeling, and if you're feeling uncomfortable. And I'm so glad you said that, because next week we're actually going to be talking about being connected to your body. So I think it's going to be
Oh,
a
okay,
great,
cool.
like, alley oop for y'all into the holiday season. Another one of our colleagues, Danielle Anderson, is going to be joining me
Okay,
next week. And so we're going
okay.
to be talking about being connected to your body. So y'all be sure to tune in, listen, catch the replay if you miss it live. And I really believe it's going to be a sweet, sweet treat. So thank you again, Freda, for joining me tonight. Hope to see y'all next week. Have a good one. Peace.